It's Friday. Welcome on Friday, and I have one student with me today. So I just want to introduce protein. This is our next section that's going on. And before we go there, though, I want to make sure that everyone is able to complete the work on the dietary analysis of fat. I'm going to open this up and preview it. A couple things. So I had a couple turn in their assignments and not putting their GB Health Watch in. And I can't do the analysis and look at your information compared to what your GB Health Watch looks like if I don't have it. It may be the same one you've turned in before, but it just, I have to go out of this assignment. It makes it difficult. So I really need that to be in there. Otherwise you end up getting a 0. So I have to have that. If I can't do that, I can't grade it. And just to emphasize again, the calculations and the sample calculations, you're just putting in your calorie level and then filling this information out and going through this, as it has here. So if I have 2000 as my sample calorie, just take that out, plug in what your calories are and do the multiplication across this way. So that you're ultimately getting grams of this. And again, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and saturated fat are all 10%. So it's going to be just this calculation here, your calories and multiply by 10%. The omega-3s are given. So I've given you the information here. And the answer I'm looking for, that's why I have the sample answer, is going to look like this, right? So you're just going to, this is what your answer is going to look like in this box right here. And then again, putting that information in here and making sure you put down what you got in your GB Health report here. And then making some commentary in terms of that. Finding your top sources of total fat, saturated fat. If you can't find it, I feel like total fat isn't showing up anymore. So again, you can put in there no information on total fat, but put each date and what your top sources of, at least for saturated fat. And then do your commentary down here. Sometimes I get one sentences on this, and that's not going to get you 15 points. So make sure that you're a little bit more expansive in terms of how you're answering these questions and what you need to do and what not to do. So anyway, just a quick kind of follow up there on what's due on Sunday night this week. And then we're on to protein. So I always like to start off the chapter thinking about why is this important? And so when I think about protein itself, what does protein give to your body? I had a great visual and I can't find it where I had it, but really looking at the comparison, we talked about added sugars and how there's really added sugars just add no nutritional value outside of just giving you sugar. So many products today have protein added to them. So protein's a little bit different because you may need to bump your protein intake up. And so for people who need that extra grams of protein, that's good. But those protein powders that are added to your food bring no additional nutritional value outside of just that protein. So in other words, if I'm eating a piece of meat, I'm going to get zinc, I'm going to get iron, I'm going to get B12 from it. If I'm eating fish, I'm going to get those omega-3s that are important along with the protein. So I always want to kind of focus back on your food sources of these nutrients. So food sources of protein bring you so much more nutrition. If you're eating beans, you're going to get protein from the beans, but you're also going to get all those phytochemicals and fiber. So it's not just that grams of protein, it's all the nutrition that food product brings for you. So just kind of keeping that in mind as you're thinking about proteins and why it's important. This one's a little bit quicker. So we're going to do just you're going to do your overview, your guided lecture, glossary of terms. Again, I have a video here. Some of you are really struggling with these videos to show up. This isn't student view, let me put it in student view. And I'm not sure why that happens. And it seems like you should be able to take this video multiple times. So if you're not happy with your answers, you can retake it, but it seems like it locks you out if you take it the first time. If that happens, send me an email and I can go in and open it back up again for you. So I don't know why that's not working like it's supposed to, but because it's a computer and that's just what happens. So introduction to proteins, this is a great one to kind of wander through and take a look at. And then you'll also be doing another analysis of your protein intake. So again, the same GB Health you used before, unless you want to redo it. You're going to be looking at that. So for this one, again, you're going to make sure you submit your 3-day GB Health Watch here. The calculations here are a little quicker. There's not as much from a protein intake. But when we talk about protein, so if you remember back a couple weeks ago, we talked about the acceptable macronutrient distribution range. And for protein, your calorie intake for protein can be anywhere from 10 to 35% of your calories. So somebody who's a little bit lower on protein, maybe somebody who needs more carbohydrate. Or somebody who's eating a little bit more fat. 35% of your calorie, 35% of your calories coming from protein, you're chewing on some meat. I'm just telling you, that's a lot of protein that you're getting in, or you're supplementing your diet with a lot of protein. But the research tells us that could be a healthy intake in between those two. So that's fine. So you kind of want to find out, well, how many grams of protein should I get a day if I'm looking at this guideline? The research on protein itself actually shows us that your protein intake, actually your protein use, we can look at how much is coming in and how much is going out. Those of you who are going into nursing, you'll appreciate this. We can capture urine for a 24-hour period. I say that because I used to have my nurses in the ICU had to do this. You can capture urine output. And so the nitrogen in the urine is a direct relationship to how much protein the body is using. So we're pretty specific in terms of what the requirements are in terms of this 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So I'm having you calculate both. So I want you to find out your protein based on calories. So what's a target there? And then also, what are your protein requirements based on your weight? So this one, the math's pretty straightforward. It's very similar in terms of your RDA. So again, my 2,000 calories, that's my calorie goal, times 10% or 0.10. So it's going to give me 200 calories, and then you're dividing by 4 because there's 4 calories per gram. So it's showing me here. If I go up to this 35%, you can see 175 grams of protein. That's a lot of protein, but this would fit within a healthy diet, 50 to 175 grams based on your weight. So in the medical field, we oftentimes will base medications, insulin, a variety of things are based on your weight in kilograms. And so to convert to kilograms, there's 2.2 pounds for every kilogram, right? So if I assume somebody weighs 150 pounds, I'm going to divide that by 2.2 and get to their weight in kilograms, which is 68. I'm sure there's a bunch of places online where you can just say convert pounds to kilograms. You can plug your weight in and we'll give it to you, but just so you know. So you need to get your weight in kilograms. And then to find out how much protein, remember it's 0.8 grams, so just less than a gram per kilogram of body weight. So for this person, 68 kilograms times 0.8, so it'll tell me about 54 grams. And that's pretty close to what a 150-pound person would utilize on a regular basis. So your answer then, and this is what your sample answer should look like. You're going to put this exactly in there. This is what your example answer is going to be for this one.
Is that per meal or per day?
Great question. So that would be per day. That would be per day. Yeah, one of the things the book doesn't go into, and I think this is interesting because this topic comes up when people have me in a live class and they can ask me questions. I never know what I'm going to get in the live class. Not that you guys aren't live, I should say face-to-face. You guys are live also. There's this thought that you only absorb so much protein at a meal. And that research has been done for a variety of reasons, like people who are trying to increase their net protein utilization. And so there is some thought that about 30 grams of protein per meal is the maximum amount that your body's able to utilize and uptake into, say, muscle tissue. So if you were somebody who really wanted to maximize your protein intake and utilization in muscle tissue, you might want to separate your protein out amongst 3 meals, or if you're trying to get more protein in, amongst 4 meals. Does that make sense? So for instance, for mine, if this was mine, 54 grams of protein, I might spread that out amongst the 3 meals and do 20, 20, and 20 grams to maximize my protein. So the science on that's a little sticky, which is why I don't always talk about it, because it kind of depends on what metabolic state your body's in at the time that you're eating. So I wouldn't get that scientific unless we'll talk more about it during sport when we talk about sports nutrition.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's what you're doing with this one. The protein one's very similar. Your leading sources of protein. So I think I just pulled that up over here where I showed you guys. I have to search for it. It's hard on the spot. So again, I'm looking at my protein intake. This is saying it's too high. This is why I'm not having you go on just what GB Health Watch is rating you. I want you to make that assessment because I'm going to say, well, that's not really that high. That's fine given what my targets are. So that's okay. And particularly when I put in my goal for GB Health Watch, I went a little lower in calories because I don't like the calories it gave me. So I kind of manipulated it. So the program's good for what it's good for, but the faces don't always give you the best information depending on what your targets are. So that's why I'm having you guys do this versus just going off of what they're telling you, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put in here my leading source of protein for each day. And not the amount of fat. So I'm gonna have to go back and fix that. I don't know why it says that. Put 3 highest food source and the amount of protein. It should say protein. It's always good to catch these on while I'm looking at it. And then what changes would you make in terms of it? And if you don't have any changes in there, if you're like, well, what am I gonna write? I'm good. You might just put in there, these are some sources of protein I'm getting in. I might consider, getting these additional sources of protein, or I might switch these sources of protein out. This might be beneficial for other reasons. So for mine, I do like a protein shake right now just because it's easy. So I might say, I'm going to try and venture out and do some more animal or vegetable sources of protein. So if you're looking for things to write up, those are things you can kind of put in there. If you're like, I'm meeting my goals, however, this might be good, and kind of leave it at that. So back to modules. So that's your dietary analysis of protein intake, and I will fix that one question. I'm glad I saw that. One of the other things I wanted to bring up, and I was talking with a student this morning, these self-checks. There's also a discussion. I got a little flack on this over the summer. So, it's an interesting topic. And I know like we're feeling like this whole, I don't know, climate change thing, maybe like just kind of a crazy thing. But shoot, we just had this hurricane. So climate change is it's out there, whether we believe it or not. So this one was just really looking at what are some things you can do from a food standpoint, just to kind of have top of mind, like where are you getting some of your biggest sources of CO2? And you can look at some of the food sources that you're eating. So this chart's kind of an interesting one, I think, to look at. You'll be able to look at it when you're on your Canvas site, and it just shows you where your greenhouse gases are coming from. So it's just kind of an interesting one here. So I wanted you to actually just kind of put some information in here in terms of, what could you do to just, be healthy and keep the planet healthy. So anyway, so that's what kind of this discussion is about this week. So how can you reduce the impact of food choices on the environment? Choosing vegetarian meals a few times a week can help your carbon impact. So this meatless Mondays, just going meatless one day a week. So you can read some information on that. And then just kind of discussing some of the consequences of choices people are making. So hopefully you have fun with that. Whether that's something, I don't know if I want to say you agree with or not. I just kind of would like you to put some information in there in terms of if you were using this information, how would you use that information? So the other thing is these test your knowledge. The recommendation I have for this for students who are maybe just struggling with some of the information. So today, when you get started, if you get started today on chapter or unit 6, you might go through this right off the bat. So along with like looking at all the objectives for the week, take a look at this, go through these, kind of do these, look through them. You can check your answers and then read through the book and start doing your guided lecture notes and watching the videos. And then redo this again at the end. And the thought there is, as you're doing this, some of it starts sticking in your brain, and then you're reading it and you're like, oh, that's right, I looked at that on here, and that's sticking in your brain. And then you're redoing it at the end again. So just trying to make the information stick a little bit better. That's one way to handle it. if you have, so one of the things I haven't necessarily seen, and you can do this or not, but these study groups, some of the other classes, what I've seen people do is like divvy up the page of the guided notes, because that's kind of a lot of information. And so each of you, this is totally up to you guys to organize yourselves as students, but each of you could put up a page of the guided notes so that they're all up there, or you could put all of your guided notes and then you can check each other's answers just to see if you're all getting the same information. So I don't see you guys using this. This is totally your space. I don't go in here. I don't grade it in any way, but this is here for you guys. And you can go into the inbox and email everybody in your class and leave me out of it. I mean, you can put me in it. I'm happy. I'm happy to engage in the conversation also, but you can like knock me out of it and like just organize that way. It's one way to kind of connect with the other students in the class. So, and then there's the quiz and the module conclusion. The other thing I wanted to point out at the module conclusion. So if you want additional information regarding any of the topics that we go over each week, I have a bunch of extra YouTube stuff in here. Some of it's pretty in depth, but I have that there as optional so that you don't have to go to it. So you can go in and take a look at some of these different ones if you were just kind of curious about more information about protein. So I'm not making you guys watch it, but it is there for you. So anyway, that's kind